This is Group 6, representing Section 4. What is the gold standard? Let's boogie our way back in time as we discuss the gold standard and how it was used throughout history. Since the beginning of time, gold has been the currency of choice. The earliest known use of it was back in 643 BC in present-day Turkey, then Lydia, where they used it to make coins. In the 1700s, the country with the most gold also had the most wealth. This is why everyone was so gold crazy. That is why countries like Portugal, England, and Spain were sending explorers like Columbus to sail the ocean blue in hopes of discovering more gold. At the same time, these banks were popping up, closing down, and growing as time progressed, all with the flow of gold. By the mid-1800s, most countries wanted to standardize transactions in the booming world trade market. During most of the 1800s, the United States had a bimetallic system of money. By 1861, the U.S. had printed its first paper currency, and the U.S. adopted the gold standard with the passage of the Gold Standard Act.
The gold standard is a monetary system where countries' currency, for example the US dollar, has a value directly linked to gold. Between 1871 and 1914, the gold standard was the dominant money system in the world, and governments worked pretty well together to keep it ticking along. Under the system, countries agreed to exchange their currencies for fixed amounts of gold and then set a fixed price at which their gold could be bought and sold. For example, if the US fixed the price of its gold at $20 an ounce, then the US dollar would be worth 1/20th of an ounce of gold, and could therefore be exchanged for 1/20th of an ounce of gold. This meant the country couldn't have more currency in circulation than it held in gold supplies, because otherwise that currency couldn't be exchanged at the agreed rates of gold. The US, for example, couldn't just print more dollar bills to pay for things because there wouldn't be the gold supply to back it up, and those bills would effectively have no value. This is a system in which currencies have a value given to them by governments rather than linked to gold. Governments give these currencies value by making it law, accepted as forms of payments, by making it a requirement that taxes must be paid. National currencies, like the US dollar, euro, and British pound, are rule fiat currencies, and because the value of fiat currencies are not linked to gold, governments have the power to issue it wherever they see fit. While banks are able to create more fiat money through lending, under the fiat system there is no limit to how much money can be created, and this has led to global money supply increasing dramatically. To sum it up, as more money is put into the system, the more prices will rise, and the more debts that the people and the government are forced to take on. And in recent years, the idea to return to the gold standard has been gaining popularity in Western cultures.
The United States decided to abandon the gold standard after World War II because it seemed to do nothing to help end the Great Depression, which Americans were struggling with every day. After abandoning the gold standard, the United States decided to use a fiat money system. Under a fiat money system, the dollar's value is not fixed to any amount of gold or asset. It's based solely on a medium of exchange.
Critics of the fiat money system claim that when more dollars are put into circulation, our currency becomes diluted and the value of each dollar drops, driving prices up, meaning it takes more of these devalued dollars to purchase the same candy bar or gasoline. In practice, however, the fiat system that has been in place for the past 40 years is designed to avoid just that.
One of the facts about the demand for money is that it can fluctuate very violently in a very short period of time. Banking panics are more likely to occur under a gold standard regime. The reason for this is because during a bank panic or a bank run, people are running to the bank to redeem their banknotes for gold. And the banking system as a whole may not have enough gold to honor all of these redemptions if they were to occur at the same time.
Under a fiat money system, the government is free to create money and to lend it out temporarily to distressed banks, so that those banks can take that money and give it to the people who want to withdraw their money, thus accommodating the temporary elevated demand of money.
When people see that they can go and get their money, and there's no possibility that the bank's going to run out of money, the panic subsides.
After the panic subsides, the short-term loans can be repaid to the government. This way, the fiat money system, an elastic money supply, can mitigate and even eliminate the possibility of a bank run or a banking crisis.
We really could base our economy on things such as, like, I don't know, maybe lightly salted rice cakes and other things such as rolls of tape. Here's an example of some more common alternatives to the gold standard. Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are digital coins you can send through the internet. Compared to other alternatives, Bitcoins have a number of advantages. Bitcoins are transferred directly from person to person via the net without going through a bank or clearinghouse. This means that the fees are much lower, you can use them in every country, and your account cannot be frozen, and there are no prerequisites or arbitrary limits.
Bitcoin was first used in January of 2009, and Satoshi Nakamoto invented it. Similarly to gold, Bitcoin is durable, much like gold is. In addition, Bitcoins can be easily transported no matter the quantity. When discussing acceptability as a way of payment, Bitcoin is just as acceptable as gold at several locations. In fact, Bitcoin may even be easier to pay with than with gold. Another reason for why Bitcoin can be better than gold is because Bitcoin can never be counterfeited, while on the other hand, counterfeit gold can sometimes be made with tungsten metal. This makes it hard for consumers to tell whether or not the gold that they own is genuine or not. Lastly, Bitcoin can be easily divided up into many magnitudes, while dividing gold into smaller quantities requires a lot of time and labor. Knowing this, Bitcoin seems to be a better alternative than gold. Now you're going to hear from a few of my homies from Wall Street and a couple economists that have done their time. Let's hear what they have to say.
What can we do about it?
Ultimately, we're going to do what we did for the first 180 years of the United States' existence, and that is link the dollar to gold. Scales measure weight, money should measure value, and it does it best when it has a fixed value.
Your solution for strengthening the dollar is perhaps returning to some sort of a gold standard?
Absolutely. Yes, experience tells us that's the way to go.
And loose money is one of the major problems. We need sound money, and I think the Fed should get out of the business of trying to juice our economy and simply be focused on sound money and monetary stability, ideally tied to gold.
If you have an honest government that's not running a deficit, that can go on for a long time. As a government becomes less and less transparent and less honest with its books, it becomes more and more worrisome. The joke I have now is that once upon a time, your dollar was backed by gold. Now your dollar is backed by used car loans and bad home loans. I'm very concerned about the fiat currency that we have now and whether or not we live in somewhat of an illusion of wealth that could come crumbling down in a dramatic fashion.
The gold standard would not be feasible for both practical reasons and policy reasons. On the practical side, there's just a simple fact that there's not enough gold, and achieving that much gold would be very expensive. But more fundamentally than that is that the world has changed. In a modern world, the commitment to the gold standard would mean that we are swearing that under no circumstances, no matter how bad unemployment gets, are we going to do anything about it using monetary policy. I think if you look at actual history, you'll see that the gold standard didn't work that well, and there's a good bit of evidence that gold standard was one of the main reasons that the Depression was so deep.
But why should this metal, this not especially useful metal, be the gold standard of value? We have an economic problem. It needs to be managed. It needs to be managed through human intelligence, not by appealing to something that may have made sense back in the first century BC.
The philosophical reason that gold cannot be the primary form of the nation's money is that gold never served the interest of the Commonwealth. It always serves the interest of the money masters. A gold-only money system has served the cause of freedom, but only for the top 1%. A gold-only money system can also be manipulated. Why? So that the money masters could milk the American economy for their benefit. Remember,
the gold standard obviously has its ups and downs. People wouldn't have used it if it didn't work in the first place. So, in the next few minutes, I'm going to be discussing some of the pros and some of the cons. What can help with the gold standard, and how can the gold standard go against our economy? In terms of pros, returning to a gold standard would lower inflation rates and slow the rise in consumer prices. The gold standard would also restrict the ability of the federal government to increase the national debt, with it being tied to a finite resource. Returning to a gold standard would also stabilize the price of oil and help slow the rise in gasoline prices. We left the gold standard for a reason in the first place, and now I'm going to explain why we did so and what could happen if we switched back to the gold standard. The first being that a well-managed fiat monetary system is the best way to keep inflation down, not returning to a gold standard. In In 1981, when annual inflation was at a skyrocketing 10.3%, Congress authorized a gold commission within the U.S. to actually put on a study regarding returning to the gold standard as a way to bring down the inflation. The commission ultimately concluded that restoring a gold standard doesn't really appear to be fruitful because it's just a continued problem of inflation. By 1982, the monetary policy decisions of Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker had already stopped the inflation. By 1983, growth in consumer prices was down to 3.2% from a high of 13.5% in 1980. A gold standard would also limit the ability of the Federal Reserve to help the economy pull itself out of recessions and depressions. Under our current fiat monetary system, the Federal Reserve can use this monetary policy to respond to financial crises by lowering interest rates during a recession, raising them during a period of inflation, and injecting money into the economy when necessary. A gold standard would severely hamper the performance of these functions and ultimately destroy our economy. Returning to a gold standard could destabilize and crash the already fragile United States economy. The last time the United States moved from a fiat monetary system to a gold standard was in 1879 after the Civil War. The shift caused massive deflation within the economy. Given the current fragility of the United States and the global economy, the deflation caused by moving from a fiat monetary system to a gold standard would severely harm, if not crash, our economy. Nowadays, returning to the gold standard, especially at this stage of our economy, wouldn't necessarily benefit us as Americans. The gold standard was an efficient means of providing economic stability many years ago due to the high value of the dollar. Today, however, with a national deficit of nearly $17 trillion of debt, we simply don't have enough gold in our reserves, actually in the planet even, to peg our own economy back to gold. United States gold reserves total $456 billion at current market value. So even if we were to liquidate all of our gold, our deficit would only be lowered to approximately $15.5 trillion. This means that in order to go back to the gold standard, we would have to revalue gold to an estimated $10,000 per ounce, which is, compared to today, seemingly unheard of. Pegging our economy on gold has its benefits. The greatest one, for example, is that it establishes fiscal discipline for governments, businesses, and individuals alike. By valuing the dollar based on available gold reserves, the sense of economic abstraction is eliminated and people can see how their money is valued, because it is grounded to a finite resource. On the other side of the coin, no pun intended, it has negative sides too. To start off, there is simply not enough gold in the world to back up our massive economy. We have too much cash flow. Simply put, money in circulation is a dynamic and growing figure. Money supply grows in reaction to the growth of the economy itself. If we peg the economy on a finite resource like gold, we eliminate the opportunity for growth within the economy. With a global economy growing by approximately 3 to 4% per year, we simply won't be able to mine that much more gold in the world. We can't mine gold fast enough to keep up with the economy's growth, and we will always be in a shortage. The gold standard is the bad standard. I'm Ron Burgundy. Stay classy, San Diego.